Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to my overview of heroes for the draft format. Now, drafting has become a bit more in focus recently because of Pro League. There's been 6 draft tournaments in the last 3 weeks that have been heavily attended because of Pro League, but I thought I'd go over a little bit of the facets of it to kind of help you with draft strategies. Now, the first place to start is heroes, because when you're drafting, you get to pick your hero at the end. So you should always be keeping in mind what hero you're thinking of using whilst drafting. So we'll go through them in order, starting with Advanced Alexa. Now, Advanced Alexa's Angelic Call, 3 mana, 2 turn cooldown, 3 levels, look at top 4, put an angel into play. This is a deck. It's an archetype required sort of hero. So angels, high rarity cards, not really playable in draft. So Advanced Alexa, I would say almost never. I don't think it's not impossible to get enough angels, but it's very unlikely. So I would say almost never. And the angels are very good, so they're highly contested by other players. Basic Alexa, 1 mana, 2 turn cooldown, get a militia if you have another creature. Basic Alexa is actually okay, but she's not as good as some of the other options in the kinds of decks you want to be playing. Order is a very good color, but as we'll find out later, often the heroes in the paired color, because you usually end up in 2, sometimes 3, but usually 2 colors, often the heroes in the paired color are actually stronger, because a 1/1 for 1 mana is okay, but it's not great, and you're not going to be getting that much synergy out of it like you are in Constructed, for instance. A Ulric. Now, a Ulric's very nice. So, 2 mana, 3 turn cooldown, 2 allied creatures are protected and can't be dealt damage at the start of your next turn. I actually really like a Ulric. 2 level hero power is very, very key. Doesn't require the double order, which is very nice, and Ulric is one of the only ways of coming back on a board against Burke. Now, as we'll go over later, Burke is one of the best heroes in the game for draft. So, Ulric lets you put stuff in back row, give them protected, and then move them forward, and you actually can regain board state against Burke, and he's one of the few heroes that can do that. So Ulric is very nice for that. 3 turn cooldown is a little long, but very, very powerful effect. I quite like Ulric. Also helps with protecting your stuff from removal and combat tricks, more importantly. So Ulric's actually quite good. Hermelion. Now, Hermelion's Tireless March, so 1 mana, and then you pay up to 3 more to ready creatures, restore their health, and then attack a second time. 3 turn cooldown. Hermelion would be good. He would be good in draft if it wasn't for the double order requirement. The thing is, if it wasn't double order, you could play an aggro deck and then play the Hermelion hero power on turn 5 or 6 and kill someone before they can stabilize. However, it being double order makes it very hard to use in draft because it means it's effectively 3 levels, because you're never going to have a start that's consistently just order. So, in practice, not that great. Absolutely amazing in Constructed, but not that great in draft. Advanced Daris. Lightning Storm. So, 4 mana, 4 turn cooldown, really long cooldown, 3 levels, but shock and deal 1 damage to all enemy creatures. One of the single strongest hero powers in the game in draft. Advanced Daris is amazing. It lets you get 2 attacks in effectively because you shock, so you get through 1 attack, and then they're still exhausted for your second attack. One of the best offensive hero powers in the game. That's why it has a 4 turn cooldown, because it really does need to. It's very, very strong. The only downside is 3 levels, and 3 levels in draft is not free. 2 level decks are more consistent and generally have higher tempo. So, 3 level is a little rough. There are some good cards in Wisdom that if you get, you can justify that 3rd level in other ways, like Dust Titan's the big one. But it's pretty rough to go 3rd level. However, very, very strong hero power. Do not underestimate that. Very, very good for tempo. If you're playing a green-blue deck, it can be very, very good because you got all those flyers, and then you just Lightning Storm attack twice and you win. So, very, very nice hero power. Basic Daris. 3 mana, 2 turn cooldown, draw a card. One of the simplest hero powers in the game. I actually don't see a lot of basic Daris, and the reason for this is because card advantage doesn't often matter as much in draft, whereas tempo is everything. And, well, tempo and value. Now, value versus card advantage are not quite the same thing, because when I say value, I mean 2-for-1s. That you play, generate tempo, and give you some card advantage. So, an example of that would be Kayano later, where you get more out of each card over time, but there's also some synergies that Kayano has that Daris doesn't. Spending 3 mana to draw a card is a little rough in draft, and you can just die to a lot of the faster decks. But if you're playing a 2-color deck with no draw power, or you're playing a control deck, somehow if you drafted a control deck, then basic Daris is actually pretty good. Ulric. Ulric's Illusion Twin, 2 mana, 3 turn cooldown. You get a Djinn Illusion with basically it shares the highest stat with everything. So if you have a 5/3 with 2 speed and a 3/5 with 3 speed, you get a 5/5 with 3 speed. That's basically how that works. And whenever it's dealt damage, it dies instantly. Now, one way around that is giving it shield emblems, of which there are many in Wisdom, so you can really work off that. I quite like Illusion Twin, with one problem. Burke. Burke hard counters Ulric, and that's a serious problem. Now, if you have shield emblems, it's okay, and Ulric is one of the better... I would say the archetype he works best in is probably Wisdom Corruption, because they have some big stuff. But yeah, if you can get a Minotaur, if you're playing Dominion Wisdom, if you get a Minotaur, they're pretty sick as well. 4/5, 3 speed on your turn. The problem is Burke. Now, if you're playing a big beatdown deck, then Burke can't really axe himself in the face, so it has its uses, but remember, in between games, you can change your deck, which means you can change your hero. That's actually a big deal in best of 3 draft, and also in best of 1 draft, if you're keeping up with who has what, then switching heroes can be a big deal. Ulric gets pretty hard countered by some archetypes, so you can swap them out if you need to. Kayano, one of my favorite heroes for draft. Weapon Mastery, 2 mana, 2 levels. You can put a cheaper creature with 3 cost or less under him, and the next turn it comes out with a Might Emblem. Now, the standard synergies of 3 mana, 2 level cards with Kayano coming out a turn early and also with a Might Emblem are amazing. They work really well in Corruption. There's some really good options in Wisdom, and even a few good options in Nature nowadays. However, Kayano is good in draft for one particular reason. Guardian Owl. Guardian Owl Kayano is one of the top tier archetypes. I would say it's the second strongest archetype in draft right now. Strongest being Order Rage with Burke. But yeah, Kayano with probably Wisdom. I think it's either Wisdom or Order, but I think Wisdom is the stronger of the two for synergies because you also have access to some shield emblems. Basically, you put an owl under a Kayano, it comes into play, and then you put a shield emblem on the owl, and it can't die, apart from minus effects and destruction effects. So basically, it is almost impossible to kill for several archetypes, and Fate's Touch is almost the only way of dealing with it, or Marked by Gods. Corruption and Dominion can deal with it. Corruption much more easily than Dominion, but those are two of the weaker colors, so it balances out. And that's one of the reasons why Guardian Owl Kayano is actually a very strong combo, because it's just very hard to deal with Guardian Owls for those kinds of decks. So Kayano, pretty strong hero. I would rank him in the top 5 heroes-wise, and I think his archetype is very strong. Advanced Neva, Reverence, 3 levels, 2 mana, 4 turn cooldown. The next 3 creatures you play cost 1 less to minimum 1, and whenever you play 1, you draw a card. Advanced Neva is an interesting one. Card advantage for card advantage's sake is tricky. Now, if you spend 5 mana total on this, it's actually a tempo boost because you spend 2 mana for the hero power, but you get 3 mana off one for each. I don't see a lot of Advanced Never in draft. I think it's very difficult to draft a deck that's almost entirely 2-mana creatures, and so the 3-level ones that you want are rares or higher, and the 2-level ones the strong ones are also rares like Death Trap, Elvish Champion, etc. So it's harder than you think to build a Reverence deck in draft, and often, again, that 3rd level is rough. So you'd think Advanced Never would be good, but in practice you don't really see it that much. Basic Never, 1 mana, 4-turn cooldown, all creatures you play this turn are swift. Now, Basic Never actually does have some applications, primarily with Bedeviled Fiends. Now, Bedeviled Fiends are not highly contested picks in draft because Corruption is not a very strong color. However, when combined with Basic Never, it gets scary fast, and Basic Never is one of the ways you can actually make those Corruption sort of beat down strategies work. So quite a strong hero, not top tier, but definitely in the usable category. Burke. Speaking of top tier, Burke, Double Chop. Now, 1 mana, pay up to 3 extra, 3-turn cooldown, and then deals that much damage up to 2 enemy creatures on the front line, and then they attack him back. Burke is insane. Burke is the strongest hero in draft, and it's not really even close. What does Burke let you do? So basically, unless your opponent has a bunch of flyers, Burke allows you to clear front row routinely. Now, with Order and Rage, what generally happens, there are other combos, like Corruption Rage is often sometimes used, but Order Rage is the strongest, because you also get access to the wonderful Guardian Owl and Orc Commando. Orc Commando, by the way, has some really, really weird interactions, because, basically, it has to block something to get its HP, and it has to attack something to get the ranged. So if it attacks face and you block it, it doesn't. And if you attack an Orc Commando directly, it doesn't gain health. So keep that in mind if you're facing these. They're a bit confusing to play against sometimes. But anyway, back on track. Double Chop lets you clear anything up to 3 health, which is most creatures in the game. And the fact that you can go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, Double Chop, and clear the board most likely, and then just keep attacking, will win you a lot of games. And it lets you clear out all the 1 HP tokens that are kind of annoying, like Eternal Servants. Double Chop is amazing. I'll put it that way. Double Chop in draft is absolutely amazing. There's nowhere near as many 4 HP creatures in draft, and there's also, there are flyers, but flyers generally have lower stats than just your creatures, which means the thing that Burke struggles with is limited. It's generally Guardian Owls, but if you can draft around Guardian Owls, you can fix it up. So a properly piloted and built Order Rage Burke deck is probably the strongest draft deck right now, I would say. Now, granted, you have to actually get the deck. If the deck isn't coming to you, don't do it, because you will just lose to a better constructed, lower tier archetype. But that is the strongest archetype, and Burke is largely the reason. Also, one of my favorite artworks of any hero in the game, by the way. Just so, yeah. In fact, if we're doing artworks, it would be Burke and probably Hermelian. I really like Hermelian. Anyway, on to another strong hero, Ashe the Annihilator. Now, Advanced Ashe, 5 mana, 4-turn cooldown, 3 level. Very similar to Lightning Storm in that regard. Deal 3 damage to all creatures. Advanced Ashe is a piece of work. And in fact, I have seen people swapping to Advanced Ashe when they're facing decks with large quantities of Guardian Owls, because it, deals non-combat damage, which means they need a shield emblem on their owls, and these Ashe will clear everything. Advanced Ashe does not see as much play as you would expect, purely because of the existence of Burke. However, he is probably the 3rd or 4th strongest hero in the game in draft. It's just that the rage hero, in terms of the rage heroes, Burke is better in most situations. But Advanced Ashe, do not sleep on him. He is amazing. And also, if you are playing a slower deck, then Advanced Ashe is probably better than Burke. If you're not playing an aggro deck, then Advanced Ashe is probably better, but it's not like in Constructed, where you can use those big rage creatures, because, Phoenix is a rare. And there are a few other options that are quite large, but a lot of them are higher rarities or uncommon or higher. So you're relying largely on the other creatures, but Advanced Ashe is very, very powerful. Basic Ashe. Now, Basic Ashe doesn't see that much play. 1 mana, 2 turn cooldown, can't block this turn. The thing is, Burke clears out most of the stuff that you just want to attack past. Now, Ashe does let you get past some stuff like Descendant of Divinity, but Descendant is also quite a high rarity card, so you're not likely to see it that often. And generally, Basic Ashe is a higher tempo, less value, less versatility version of Burke. And in Draft, when you can just get that tempo earlier by just playing stuff instead, you don't really want to lose value, and Burke doesn't rely on you basically killing them that turn. So Burke is generally better in Draft. Coronis, one of the other top tier heroes. Now, Coronis, Soul Raven ability, 2 mana, 2 turn cooldown. You spend 2 life, you get Soul Raven, which is a 1/1 flying lifebound. And if the enemy hero has been dealt damage this turn, you get a Might Emblem on it, if it doesn't already have one. Coronis is pretty much the only reason Dominion works in Draft right now. Now, we'll have to see how that goes in future, because the game's always being updated. But currently, Coronis is basically the only reason Dominion works, because that ability is amazing. Do not get it twisted. A 2 mana, 2 level, 2/2 flying lifebound is a solid card. And in fact, if that card was in the game, it would probably see quite extensive play in Draft. So, yes, the hero power is very, very good, and it also allows you to curve more routinely. So you can focus on 1-drops and 2-drops and just skip 3-drops. Now, you can do this in Constructed as well, but it also helps consistency-wise in Draft. Now, the main problem with Coronis is Dominion's not a very strong faction in Draft. In fact, I've been thinking about a sort of ranking, and if I do some other videos on Draft, we'll kind of look at that more extensively. But at least currently, I think Dominion's probably the weakest faction in Draft. It was between Corruption and Dominion, but I think Corruption pairs better with some of the other colors, so I think it's Dominion right now. But anyway, so Coronis, very strong hero, faction's not great, but you can primarily build a deck focused on the other color and then use Coronis. And Coronis lets you get a lot of value in flyers in some color combos you don't normally have. So Coronis, very, very strong. He's very, very strong. Do not get it twisted. He's one of the best heroes in the game for Draft, but the problem is the faction he's at the head of is not great right now. Despina, Advanced Despina, Tempting Lure, 3 mana, 3 levels, 1 mana, 3 turn cooldown, pay any amount of mana, search the enemy hero's deck for a creature with a combined mana cost and level equal to that number and put it into play. This is terrible in Draft. 3 levels is a lot. You have to spend a comically high amount of mana to search. For instance, a 3 mana, 2 level card will cost 5. Plus the one you need. So it costs 6 and 3 levels. That almost never happens in Draft, getting to that point where you can afford to do that. In terms of value plays, it's no Advanced Ashe. I'll put it that way. It's no Advanced Ashe. Even Coronis probably generates more value, and you don't have access to the ramp that makes Advanced Despina usable in a constructed deck. So, too slow. You don't know what your opponent's going to be playing. Not a great hero, in my opinion, in Draft. Too slow. Basic Despina, Toxic Aura, 2 mana, 3 turn cooldown, a creature you control is deadly until end of turn. Now, this actually does have some neat applications. The problem is that a lot of them are synergistic. Basically, you want to be using this on pingers, and a lot of the target emblem stuff works really well with Basic Despina. The problem is building a deck around it is hard, and all the target emblem stuff is Rage. And if you're playing Rage and you're not playing Burke, then yeah. Burke outdoes Despina massively, and Coronis outdoes her in non-synergistic setups. So, the two Despinas don't tend to see a lot. Now, onto the marathon of Corruption heroes. Let's rapid fire these. So, Amon the Immortal, who might as well be Advanced. I mean, he's basically Advanced Navarro at this point. So, reincarnate, 3 mana, 3 levels. You transform into another hero of your choice, and all their requirements become corruption. They start on cooldown and gain 4 life. Now, this has a lot of versatility. However, refer to Advanced Despina. It is slow, and that's the problem. It's too slow. 3 mana, 3 levels is a lot as a requirement, and it's on cooldown, and you only gain 4 life. It's too much tempo to lose, too much card advantage from the 3rd level. For a lot of versatility, sure, but it's not worth it. Amon, Demon Overlord. If you have 3 levels, if you would die, you get a 4/4, 1 speed creature instead, and then when that creature dies, you die. No value, no tempo off the hero power. It's designed to protect you from death, but in draft, generally, if someone can drop you to 0, they can kill the 4/4. So, Amon, not good in draft at all. 3rd Amon, Lord of Corruption. Corrupt. 2 levels, 1 mana, 3 turn cooldown, pay 2 life, play a non-corruption creature from your hand, replacing all levels, you put a Might Emblem on that creature. Hilariously, this actually does have some usage. The problem is, it requires double corruption, which effectively means it's a 3-level hero power. Refer to previous 3-level hero powers. The other issue is you have to consider this heavily while drafting, and that's not always easy. Now, if you pick up a chicken, I can think, like, if you pick up a chicken and some other stuff, maybe. If you pick up some of the tainted stuff, maybe. The problem is, a lot of that's higher rarity, so it's unlikely to actually happen. And you're losing tempo, and you're not gaining all that much advantage. It's not like Constructed where you can build your deck around it. So, the 3 Amons, not great. Enoch. Blood Feast. 2 mana, 2 turn cooldown, 2 levels, sacrifice a creature. Every other creature you have gains +1/+1, and you gain 1 life for each creature you control. Enoch's an interesting one. He's actually usable purely in nature corruption. The reason is crabs. So basically, they keep coming back. You can probably get them because it's a very specific 2-color combo. So if there's a bunch of crabs in the pool, you probably want to be playing Enoch instead of Neva. However, if you're using Bedeviled Fiends and such, it's probably the other way around. So Enoch has some fringe uses. Reasonably strong hero power, you just need to build your deck around it. Basic Navarros, 1 mana, 2 turn cooldown, -1 speed. Now, one of the simplest hero powers in the game. I actually think it's decent in draft. The problem is the color it's in is not great, but if you have a heavy corruption start, Entangle's where you want to be. It's very simple, but it allows you to actually get board position with zombie-type creatures, which are usually quite large. So it's actually not bad. For instance, if someone plays an Orc Commando and you've got an Insatiable Ghoul, you can just Entangle and kill it. So yeah, Entangle is actually pretty good in draft. The problem is the color it's at the head of is not great, and it usually is playing second fiddle to another color anyway. But if you're in a primarily corruption deck, which do happen sometimes in draft when you get just a very deep color, then Entangle is actually pretty good. Advanced Navarros, Occultism, 3 mana, 3 levels, 2 turn cooldown, lose 2 life, and revive something that died this turn from either person. It's very slow. That's the issue. It's very slow. It requires removal to be used effectively and enter play abilities like Succubus, which is a rare. So, has some uses, but, well, better options. I'll put it that way. Has some uses, but there are better options, and you need to be heavy corruption to use it. And the final hero, Yitix. Whenever you gain a new hero skill, you can pay 1 mana and draw a card, and whenever you play a non-ancient spell, you lose 2 life, starts with 22 health. Yitix is unplayable. Yitix is the worst draft hero in the game. It is not designed for draft at all, so you're going to be playing a lot of non-ancient spells, I'll put it that way. So you're probably going to take about 6 damage a game just for the privilege of having Yitix. And there aren't that many skill shrines floating around. So, chance of you getting 3 skill shrines, ludicrously unlikely. So, Yitix is the worst hero in draft. Just do not use it. It's not designed for it. It's designed for deck building and construction. It's designed for constructed, not for draft. It is a bad draft card. Do not use it in draft. So, that's all the heroes. Now, in terms of ranking them, it's a bit tricky. Burke is easily the best hero in draft. It's really not that close. Besides that, you've got Coronis, which on a hero perspective is very powerful, but the color he requires you to be in isn't. Kayano works really well with Guardian Owl. Ulric can be really good, but the metagame in draft's not very good for him right now. Besides that, you've got the ever-powerful Advanced Daris and Advanced Ashe for their board wiping and offensive abilities in the case of Advanced Daris. And Ulric can help counter Burke a little bit. Advanced Navarro and Enoch both have fringe applications, and also basic Navarro has fringe applications as well. But a lot of the heroes aren't that great right now. The thing is that when you're looking at draft, the rules are different than for constructed. You're looking for consistency, you're looking for tempo, and you're looking for reliable value. And a lot of the heroes in the game are designed to work with certain archetypes that are not viable in draft, or are a little too slow, and you need those constructed deck building options to slow the game down enough to actually make use of them. So a high-level hero power has to be exceptionally strong in draft to actually be used. It's not like in Trials where the game's a lot slower, so you can actually use these heroes. So examples of deck-building ones you just can't use are Advanced Alexa's, probably the worst case. Advanced Neva can be a little rough. Even Hermelian can be a little rough on that case. And then all the way down here, Advanced Navarros, Yitix, the Amons, all of them, things like that. So the draft hero pool, you've probably got about 6 or 7 viable options right now, but this could change from patch to patch as different cards come in and out of favor and new cards get released. Always pay attention to those common rarity cards. Those are the big ones, commons and uncommons for draft, but commons especially. You're going to be seeing a lot of those. But anyway, that's my rundown of all the heroes when it comes to their draft capabilities. If you'd like to see some more videos on draft, please let me know. I'm thinking of doing a rundown on the commons and uncommons for each color to kind of go over why each color is where it is in terms of draft tiering. And I might go over a little bit about draft strategy as well. But anyway, thank you all for watching. This has been Jotto. If you like the content, please subscribe and let me know of anything you would like to ask, either in the comment section or just ask me on Discord. I'll put the link in the description as usual. But as now, it's been Jotto, signing off.